Welcome to Momentum Mind, the place where powerful stories meet personal growth. Here, we turn life-changing books into immersive journeys that awaken your imagination and fuel your mindset for the road ahead. If you're ready to build momentum in your life and unlock the strength within your mind, then you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Chapter 1. The whisper behind the storm. The rain had been falling for days. The streets glistened under the grey sky, and people hurried past one another, their umbrellas clashing like tiny shields. Among them was Clara, clutching a folder to her chest, a folder filled with overdue bills, rejection letters, and a quiet, heavy disappointment she didn't dare show anyone. She moved through the city as if invisible, a shadow among shadows. The world around her looked dull, drained of color. Even the lights of the cafe across the street seemed dimmer than they used to be. She could barely remember when she last felt hope. That night, Clara sat in her small apartment, the walls close and tired. The clock ticked loudly, marking the hours of another day that had slipped away. She turned off the lamp and whispered to herself, "Something has to change." The words hung in the air, soft, trembling, but they felt real. They felt like the first honest thing she had said in months. And then, the phone rang. It wasn't anyone she knew. A calm voice spoke through the static, a woman who said she had been a friend of Clara's late aunt. "Your aunt left something for you," she said. "A book. She believed it would help when you were ready." Clara almost laughed. "A book?" She didn't need a book, she needed a job, a miracle, a new life. But the voice was kind, and the woman gave her an address. So, the next day, Clara went. The place was tucked behind an old bookstore that smelled of dust and forgotten stories. The woman, tall and gentle, handed her a wrapped parcel tied with a golden thread. "Your aunt said you would come when your heart was tired," she said. Clara unwrapped it later that night. Inside was a book with no title on the cover, only a soft shimmer, like light beneath water. When she opened it, a single line glowed faintly at the top of the first page. "You are the artist of your own life. The universe paints what you believe." She frowned. It sounded poetic, but also strange. She turned the pages and found no chapters, no explanations, only sentences that felt like whispers. "What you think, you become. What you feel, you attract. What you imagine, you create." She almost closed it, but something about those words stirred her. A memory flickered, her aunt's voice years ago, saying, "The world listens when you speak from your heart." That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the words. Could it really be that simple? That her thoughts, her endless worries and fears, had been shaping her life all along. She began to notice things she hadn't before. The next morning, she passed the cafe and saw a help wanted sign in the window, the same cafe she had walked by for weeks without ever looking up. She paused, hesitated, then went inside. The owner smiled and said, "Funny, I was just about to take that sign down. We filled the position this morning, but something tells me I should talk to you." They spoke for 10 minutes. By the end of it, he offered her a part-time job. It felt like luck. But that night, when Clara opened the mysterious book again, one line caught her eye. "There is no such thing as luck. There is only alignment." Her breath caught. A strange, warm feeling spread through her chest. Could it be that she had called this opportunity to her, not with desperation, but with that small spark of belief she felt when she said, "Something has to change"? Over the next few days, she read more of the book. It spoke of a power that existed in everyone, an invisible force that responded to thoughts and emotions like an echo. Whatever you focused on, it said, returned to you, magnified. She began to experiment. When she woke in the morning, she stopped repeating her usual thought, "I'm so tired," and instead whispered, "Today will bring me something good." She didn't know why, but she started to feel lighter. The customers at the cafe seemed friendlier. The coffee smelled richer. The world seemed to open slightly, as if it had been waiting for her to look up. One evening, as she walked home, she saw a man standing in the rain, staring at a bus stop advertisement that said, "Imagine it. Believe it. Receive it." He turned to her and smiled as if they shared a secret. She smiled back without knowing. Why.at home, she stood before her mirror and looked at herself, really looked, for the first time in years. Her eyes were tired, but there was a new kind of spark there as she whispered to her reflection, "If this is real, show me." Nothing happened. No flash of light, no magic breeze. But that night, she dreamed of her aunt, standing in a vast field of golden light, saying only one sentence, "You already know." Clara woke with tears on her cheeks and the book resting open on her chest. The page she had fallen asleep on said, "Ask, and it is given. Believe, and it is done." A sudden knock on her door startled her. When she opened it, a neighbor she barely knew stood there holding a letter. This came to my mailbox by mistake, he said. It was from an old art gallery she had applied to months ago and forgotten about. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a short message: "We'd like to display your work in our upcoming exhibition." Her heart pounded. Her work, the paintings she had almost thrown away when she lost hope. She sat down, staring at the letter, her mind racing. Was it possible that this was all connected? The book, the thoughts, the quiet whisper inside her that dared to believe again. As the city lights glowed through her window, Clara looked at the book once more. The last line on the page seemed to shimmer faintly, as if alive. "You are beginning to remember." She closed the book slowly, her pulse quickening. She didn't understand everything yet, but she could feel something stirring in her, a force she couldn't name. And as thunder rolled faintly in the distance, she whispered to the empty room, "What happens next?" Chapter 2, The Power That Listens. Morning came with the scent of rain still in the air, soft and clean, as if the world had been washed and made new. Clara stood by her window, holding the letter from the art gallery. The words were now creased and worn from how many times she had read them. Every time she looked at them, her chest filled with something she hadn't felt in a long time: possibility. She spent the day at the cafe, moving through the rhythm of cups and steam and laughter. The air felt lighter, the people warmer. Even when small things went wrong, a spilled drink, a forgotten order, she didn't spiral into the usual cloud of frustration. Instead, she found herself smiling, saying softly, "It's all right. Something good is coming." And strangely, it often did. One evening, after closing, she sat at a table with her notebook and the mysterious golden book beside her. The lights hummed softly above. She wanted to understand how this worked, this quiet magic that didn't look like magic at all. She opened the book again. A new line had appeared, though she didn't remember seeing it before. "Your thoughts are messengers. They travel ahead of you and prepare what you believe to be true." Clara whispered the words aloud. Messengers. She imagined her thoughts as tiny sparks flying into the world, carrying her emotions with them. What if that was real? What if every worry, every fear, every hope had been painting the world around her all this time? She tried to recall her old thoughts, the ones that whispered, "Nothing ever works out, I'm not good enough, I'm unlucky." They felt heavy even now. And then she thought of the last few days, the small moments of joy, the lightness, the sense of flow. Could this be what happened when she changed what she believed? That night, she made a choice. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and whispered a simple wish: "Let me see what this power can do." The next morning, she woke early. Her mind was filled with energy, a quiet kind of excitement that hummed beneath her skin. She decided to act differently, to think as if she already had everything she wanted. She dressed with care, smiled at her reflection, and said, "You're an artist. You belong in that gallery." The words felt strange at first, like a lie, but the more she repeated them, the more they began to sound like truth. The day flowed with small miracles. The bus arrived just as she reached the stop. A stranger complimented her smile. At work, the cafe's owner told her he'd like to give her more hours. Each moment felt like the world was echoing her new energy back to her. But the real test came that evening. She returned home to find a message from the gallery, not another letter, but a voice message. The curator's tone was apologetic. "We're sorry," he said, "but due to space limitations, we might have to delay your exhibition until next season. We'll be in touch." The words hit her like a sudden chill. All her excitement drained in seconds. She felt the old panic rise, the voice inside that said, "See?" It was too good to be true. For hours she sat staring at nothing, anger and disappointment twisting inside her. The golden book lay unopened beside her, silent and almost mocking. Finally, in the stillness of night, she opened it again. A sentence shimmered softly on the page, as if waiting for her: "Do not command the storm to stop. Command yourself to stay calm within it." She breathed out slowly. Her hand stopped trembling. Maybe this was another part of the secret, not just asking, but holding faith when everything seemed to turn against her. The next morning, she decided to try something different. Instead of worrying, she painted. She let her emotions spill onto the canvas, color after color, thought after thought. It felt like speaking a language older than words. Days passed, and something inside her began to shift. The disappointment faded, replaced by a quiet trust she couldn't explain. She stopped asking when things would happen and began saying thank you for what already existed: her art, her breath, her mornings. Then, one evening, as the sun set in streaks of gold, her phone buzzed again. It was the curator. His voice was bright this time. "Clara, plans have changed. One of our featured artists had to withdraw. Your paintings, are you ready to show them next week?" Her knees almost gave out. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'm ready." When she hung up, she turned toward the golden book on her table. The pages fluttered open on their own, as though caught by a breeze that wasn't there. One glowing line appeared, new and alive. The moment you believe without doubt, the universe rushes to meet you. Clara pressed her hand to her heart. For the first time, she truly understood what that meant. The world had been listening all along, waiting for her to speak with faith instead of fear. That night, she stood on her balcony under the city lights, watching the stars blink faintly through the clouds. Everything felt connected, the sounds, the lights, even the air. It was as if the city itself was breathing with her, but just as peace settled over her, a sound broke through the night, a sudden knock on her door. She froze. It was late. Too late for visitors. When she opened it, no one stood there. Only a single white envelope lay on the floor. Inside, there was no name, no address, just a small card with the words, "You are not the only one who knows the secret. Be careful what you think." The edges of the card trembled slightly in her fingers. For a moment, the air in the room felt thicker, heavier. The lights flickered once and then steadied. Clara looked around, heart racing. She picked up the golden book, its cover warm beneath her touch, and whispered, "What does this mean?" The book stayed silent, it shimmered dim, and in that silence, Clara felt something new, not just wonder, but a hint of fear, because if the world truly listened, then who else was listening too? Chapter 3, The Ones Who Know. The envelope stayed on the table for days. Clara couldn't bring herself to throw it away, but she couldn't forget the words either. Every time she passed it, her chest tightened. Be careful what you think. She tried to push it from her mind. The exhibition was approaching, and her days were filled with preparations, framing her paintings, choosing titles, deciding what to wear. But even in the brightness of her new success, that small, trembling unease followed her like a shadow. The night before the show, she stayed late at the cafe, cleaning the counter as the lights dimmed. The owner had left, the air smelled faintly of roasted beans and rain, and the street outside shimmered with reflections. She almost didn't notice the man sitting by the window, an old man in a dark coat, watching her quietly. "I didn't see you come in," she said, startled. He smiled, not unkindly, but with a strange depth in his eyes. "You've opened the book," he said. Clara froze. "What book?" "The one wrapped in gold," he said softly. "The one that hums when you believe and hides when you doubt." Her throat tightened. "Who are you?" "Someone who has seen what you've seen," he replied. "Someone who learned, long ago, that thoughts are alive." He reached into his coat and placed something on the table, a small stone that shimmered faintly in the light. "This is how it begins," he said. "When you understand that the world listens, you realize it doesn't only listen to your hopes." Clara looked down at the stone. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. "What are you talking about?" He leaned closer, his voice low. "Every thought you release travels somewhere. Every fear, every dream. You've learned to create beauty, but creation does not choose sides. Whatever you give focus to, the world reflects back. The secret is not just power. It's responsibility." Before she could speak, he stood. "Be careful what you imagine," he said, and walked out into the night, disappearing into the rain. Clara stood there, the stone still glowing faintly in her palm. For a moment, she thought about chasing after him, demanding answers. But something inside her told her not to. That night, sleep came in fragments. She dreamed of endless mirrors, each one showing her a version of herself. Some smiling, some crying, some whispering things she couldn't hear. When she woke, the golden book lay open beside her again. The page read, "The universe does not hear yes or no, it only hears what you speak with." Feeling her mind raced. What if that was true? What if all the time she said, "I don't want to fail," the world only heard fail? What if every worry she carried had been shaping her life as much as her hope? The morning of the exhibition arrived. The gallery glowed with soft lights and murmured voices. People wandered between the paintings, wine glasses in hand. Clara stood near the center, her heart pounding. She watched strangers stop before her work, her emotions, her hopes, her healing, now hanging on white walls for others to see. Each face reflected something different. Some smiled. Others looked thoughtful. One woman even wiped a tear, and then she saw him, the old man from the cafe, standing near the back, watching her again. He nodded once, a faint smile on his lips. She wanted to go to him, but before she could move, another figure approached him, a tall woman dressed in black, her eyes sharp as glass. They spoke quietly, almost too quietly to hear. Then both turned to look at Clara. For a moment, she felt dizzy. The air around her seemed to hum. The golden book's words echoed in her mind, "Be careful what you imagine." The woman approached. "You've done well," she said softly. "The light in your paintings, it's alive." Clara swallowed. "Thank you." The woman's smile didn't reach her eyes. Do you know what happens when someone shines too brightly in a world that listens? She asked. Clara frowned. What do you mean? Everything that notices begins to respond, the woman said. And not all responses are kind. Then she walked away, leaving the faint scent of smoke and roses behind. For the rest of the night, Clara tried to focus on her guests, on the laughter and congratulations, but unease clawed quietly at her heart. Who were these people? How did they know about the book? When the exhibition ended and the last visitor left, she stood alone among her paintings. The silence felt heavier now. She turned and gasped. On the floor, beneath one of her canvases, lay another envelope. This one black, inside, a single card. You are awakening the field. Once seen, it cannot unsee you. Her hand shook. The lights flickered. For a second, she thought she heard a whisper, not in the room, but in her mind. Clara. She spun around, but there was no one there. Only her reflection in the glass. Wide-eyed and trembling, she ran home through the wet streets, the city light spinning in her vision. When she reached her apartment, she locked the door and pulled the golden book from her bag. What are you? She whispered. The pages fluttered open, faster this time, as though caught in a wind that came from nowhere. Words appeared in the golden glow, one by one, until a full sentence formed across the page. You asked to see what the power can do. Now, you will. The glow brightened until it filled the room. Clara shielded her eyes, heart racing. And as the light surrounded her, she realized she wasn't just reading the book anymore. The book was reading her. Chapter 4, The Mirror That Breathes. The light faded slowly, like the end of a sunrise played in reverse. When Clara opened her eyes, she wasn't sure she was still in her apartment. The walls looked the same, her easel, her plants, the book on the table, yet something had shifted. The air pulsed faintly, as if alive. She stood still, listening. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It hummed softly, like distant music. Every object seemed to be waiting, her cup, the curtains, even her reflection in the darkened window. She touched the golden book. Its surface was warm, almost breathing beneath her fingers. The words on the page had vanished, leaving only a faint shimmer. Am I dreaming? She whispered. The air answered with a faint echo, not words, but a feeling, like being seen. Clara backed away. Her heart raced, but there was no fear in the room, only awareness. She took a deep breath and tried to steady herself. You said you'd show me, she murmured to the empty air. Then show me gently. Nothing moved. And yet, deep inside her, she felt something click, like a lock opening. The next morning, she stepped outside, and the world felt sharper. The colors brighter. The sounds clearer. When she thought of something, small coincidences followed. She would think of an old song, and it would play in a passing car. She would imagine meeting someone, and they'd appear minutes later. It was beautiful. At first. One afternoon, she sat at the cafe's window, sketching. She thought of a bluebird, small, bright, delicate. She imagined it landing on the windowsill, tilting its head at her. A soft smile crossed her lips, and then, outside, wings fluttered. A bluebird landed exactly where she'd imagined it. It chirped once, tilting its head, looking right into her eyes. Her heart stopped. It was real. She whispered, You heard me. The bird blinked, then flew away. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat awake, staring at the golden book. This was more than coincidence now. The secret, whatever it was, had started listening more closely, but with that closeness came weight. She noticed that her emotions carried power she couldn't control. When she felt anxious, things went wrong, small but strange. The lights flickered when she doubted herself. The air grew heavy when she was angry. One morning, she woke to find her plants wilted overnight, as if they had absorbed her fears in her sleep. It scared her. She returned to the book again and again, searching for guidance. Finally, one morning, she found a new line etched faintly into the last page. You cannot command creation through fear. The mirror reflects what stands before it, nothing more, nothing less. She read it aloud, letting the words sink in. The mirror, she repeated. I am the mirror. The next days became a test. She practiced holding calm when chaos stirred. When the bus was late, she imagined it arriving on time. When a coworker snapped at her, she smiled instead of reacting. Slowly, she began to feel the world settle, as if the storm inside her had been teaching the weather how to behave. But one evening, as she painted, a knock echoed through her apartment. Slow. Deliberate, she froze. The memory of the black envelope burned in her mind. Who is it? She called. No answer. The knocking came again, louder this time. Clara moved to the door, heart pounding. Through the peephole, she saw nothing but the dim hallway. When she opened the door, a draft swept in, cold and sharp. On the floor lay another envelope, this time white, sealed with a wax symbol she didn't recognize. Her fingers trembled as she broke the seal. Inside was a card written in elegant handwriting: to the one who remembers, come to the mirror house before the moon fades. No address. No name, but as she read it, an image formed in her mind, a house she had never seen, yet somehow recognized. A tall, narrow building at the edge of the old district, its windows silvered like liquid glass. She didn't know how she knew it existed, only that it was waiting for her that night. She went. The streets were quiet, the air damp with fog. The city lights blurred in the mist, and her footsteps echoed softly. When she reached the old district, she saw it, exactly as she'd imagined. The mirror house, its windows shimmered faintly, reflecting not the street, but something else, swirling light, shapes that didn't belong. The door was slightly open. Clara stepped inside. The air was still, filled with the faint scent of rain and metal. Every wall, every surface reflected her image. But her reflection didn't move like her. Some mirrors showed her smiling when she wasn't. Others showed her older, or younger, or wearing colors she didn't own. Her voice trembled. Hello? A sound came, footsteps, slow and careful. From behind one of the mirrored walls stepped the tall woman from the gallery. I was wondering when you'd come, the woman said. What is this place? Clara whispered. The heart of belief, the woman replied. The place where the world meets its reflection. Those who know the secret come here to remember what they truly are. Clara glanced at her reflection, hundreds of versions staring back. And what am I? The woman smiled faintly. A creator who has forgotten her own creation. She stepped closer, her reflection moving in perfect harmony with Clara's. You've awakened the mirror, she said. But you must learn balance. What you love will bloom. What you fear will follow. The secret serves both. I don't want to hurt anything, Clara said. Then don't, the woman answered. But remember, denial is also a kind of focus. Her words hung heavy in the air. The reflection shimmered and shifted, showing scenes from Clara's life, moments of joy, moments of despair, all woven together, and then, one image changed. It showed her standing exactly where she was now, but behind her, in the mirror's reflection, something dark was moving. Clara turned sharply. Nothing. Only the soft hum of the room. When she looked back at the mirror, the shadow was closer. The woman's tone hardened. You've called it, she said. You thought of fear. The mirror listens. The lights flickered. The reflections warped, the air thickened, and the shadow began to stretch toward Clara, tall, shapeless, but pulsing with emotion. Her own emotion. Tell it who you are, the woman said. Clara stepped back, voice shaking. I'm not afraid. But the shadow laughed, not with sound, but through vibration, through the trembling of the mirrors themselves. Say it with belief, the woman urged. Clara closed her eyes, drew in a trembling breath, and whispered, I am light. I am not what I fear. The shadow froze. The mirror stopped vibrating. Slowly, the darkness receded, melting back into her reflection. When she opened her eyes, the woman was gone. Only the mirrors remained, quiet and still. I in the center of the room lay the golden book, open on the floor. A new sentence had appeared. The world becomes what you dare to believe in the dark. Clara picked it up, heart pounding, and whispered to herself, then what happens when the dark believes back? The mirrors rippled once, as if answering. Chapter 5, The Echo of Others. The city looked the same the next morning, buses rushing past, people buried in their routines, sunlight breaking through clouds, and yet Clara felt as if she were walking through a dream. Every sound seemed to hold meaning, every stranger's glance a hidden message. She couldn't forget the mirror house. The woman's words repeated in her mind, what you love will bloom. What you fear will follow. The book lay on her bedside table, quiet now, as though resting after what it had shown her. But Clara could feel it, a pulse beneath its cover, faint, like a heartbeat under skin. At the cafe, she tried to be normal. She took orders, smiled, wiped tables. But something had changed in how people looked at her. Some smiled warmly, others avoided her eyes, as if sensing something they couldn't name. When she spoke, small things happened, cups stopped rattling, a flickering bulb steadied, the scent of coffee seemed richer. The air around her listened. Then, that afternoon, a man she didn't recognize walked in. He was tall, calm, dressed simply, but his presence filled the room. He ordered nothing, just sat in the corner, watching her. When she brought him water, he smiled faintly. You've begun to shine, he said quietly. Clara froze. I'm sorry. The frequency around you, he said. It's awake. Her pulse quickened. Do I know you? Not yet, he replied. But you will. We all find one another eventually, those who remember. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small coin, gold and thin, marked with the same symbol that sealed the white envelope. "You've been to the mirror house," he said. Clara hesitated. "Who are you people?" "Not people," he said softly. "Not only that. We're mirrors, walking ones. Those who learned the secret long ago and kept it alive. But most forget that every reflection comes with a shadow. You've seen yours now." He placed the coin on the table and stood. "When the world listens, it listens to all of us. Be careful what the others wish for." Before she could respond, he walked out, disappearing into the afternoon crowd. Clara stared at the coin. It shimmered faintly, warm to the touch. Around its edge were words so small she almost missed them. The echo remembers. That night, she couldn't shake his warning. Others who knew. Others who believed, and what if some of them didn't wish for light? The days that followed grew strange. Objects would move slightly when she entered a room, as if adjusting to her. She'd dream of people she didn't know, and see them the next day on the street. She began to feel the pulse of other minds brushing against hers, faint but real, like distant music bleeding through walls. One evening, as she painted, her brush paused mid-stroke. The air in her apartment grew cold, her reflection in the window darkening. Then she heard it, a whisper, low and echoing, not outside her, but within her thoughts. "You're not the only one creating now." The paintbrush fell from her hand. "Who's there?" she whispered. The golden book opened on its own, pages fluttering wildly before settling on a new sentence that seemed carved rather than written. "The field remembers every creator. You have touched the network of thought." Clara's breath caught. The network. Suddenly, images flickered in her mind, people scattered across the city, each one radiating a faint glow, a woman meditating in an empty room, a man writing furiously in a notebook, a child whispering to a cracked mirror. She could feel them, their emotions, their hopes, their fears. All sending signals into the same invisible sea, and among them, something darker stirred. She felt it before she saw it, a pull, heavy and cold. A presence born not of wonder but of hunger. Someone else was using the secret, but not to heal or dream. This power, her power, was being twisted. The golden book quivered, its pages turning faster and faster until they stopped on a blank one. Slowly, ink bled across it, forming words that made her blood run cold. "Where light gathers, shadow learns to imitate." Clara stood, heart pounding. "No," she whispered. "I won't let that happen." But deep down, she already knew she wasn't the only mirror anymore. That night, she returned to the mirror house. The air was thicker this time, the reflections restless. The tall woman in black waited for her near the center, her expression grave. "You feel them now," the woman said. "The others?" "Yes," Clara said. "And one of them, something about it feels wrong." The woman nodded. "Not wrong. Unbalanced. The world always balances itself. For every creator of joy, there is one who creates from fear." Clara stepped closer. "Then how do I stop it?" "You don't stop it," the woman said. "You strengthen what you are. You imagine stronger than the dark can remember. You love louder than fear can echo." Clara shook her head. "That's not enough." "It is all there is," the woman said. "But remember, the more you believe, the louder your voice becomes. And when you call, everything listens, not only the light." A tremor ran through the mirrors. For a second, Clara saw another reflection, not hers, not the woman's, but a stranger's face in the glass. Eyes pale and endless, watching her. The woman turned sharply. "He's already heard you." "Who?" Clara whispered. The woman's reflection fractured. "The one who builds with fear." The glass splintered. A gust of air burst through the room, and the lights went out. Clara stumbled backward, her heart hammering. When the lights flickered back on, she was alone. The mirror house was empty, silent, every surface cracked. The golden book lay on the floor again, its pages glowing faintly. This time, it said only one thing: the shadow wants your belief. Do not give it. Clara closed the book slowly, her hands shaking. The city outside was dark, the air too still. Somewhere out there, someone else was whispering to the same universe, and the universe was answering both of them. Chapter 6, The City That Listened. The city had changed overnight. Clara felt it the moment she stepped outside. The air was heavier, as if holding its breath. The sound of traffic came slower, warped, like it traveled through water. People moved differently, hurried, nervous, glancing over their shoulders for no reason they could name. Something had shifted in the current of thought that ran beneath everything. As she walked, streetlights flickered one by one behind her, like the city was tracking her steps. On a nearby billboard, an ad changed in front of her eyes, not the image, but the words. What had said believe in more now read, you can't escape what you imagine. Her stomach twisted, she gripped the golden book in her bag tighter, its faint warmth pulsing like a heartbeat. By the time she reached the cafe, the morning rush had already turned strange. Customers sat in silence, staring into their phones but not moving their fingers. The radio played a soft static hum. When Clara spoke, her voice echoed faintly, even though the room was full. Are you okay? She asked Mara, the waitress beside her. Mara blinked slowly. Bad dreams, she murmured. Everyone had bad dreams last night. Clara felt a chill creep up her neck. What kind? Mara looked up, eyes glazed. A man with no shadow. He walks between thoughts. He says we called him. The tray slipped from Clara's hand, cups shattering. The sound jolted the room back to life, people blinked, moved, muttered, the strange haze breaking for a moment. Clara rushed into the alley behind the cafe, gasping. The man. The reflection. He wasn't just in her mind. He was leaking into theirs. She opened the golden book. The pages fluttered and stopped on a new line of text glowing dimly. When one creator fears, the world inherits the vision. She slammed the book shut, her heart racing. Someone, maybe the man she'd seen in the mirror, was imagining fear so vividly that everyone could feel it. The sky grew darker, clouds gathering unnaturally fast. Streetlights blinked even though it wasn't night yet. Clara turned a corner and froze. A crowd stood silently in the square, all facing the same direction, toward a tall, empty stage that hadn't been there the day before. At its center stood a single figure. He wore no coat, though the wind bit sharply. His eyes were colorless, his face pale as stone. Around him, the air shimmered like heat above asphalt. Clara felt the pull immediately, a low vibration in her chest, like her thoughts were being drawn out of her head toward him. He lifted his gaze and smiled faintly, as if recognizing her from far away. You called, he said. His voice was calm, but it vibrated in the air, echoing inside every skull. You wanted to know the truth. Here it is, the world listens to everyone, but fear speaks louder. Clara's breath caught. You're twisting it, she said. He tilted his head. No. I'm balancing it. You spread light, and people forget what darkness costs. They think belief is safe. He raised his hand, and the clouds thickened overhead. It's not. Clara stepped forward. Why are you doing this? Because I can, he whispered. Because you showed me how. The crowd's eyes glowed faintly, reflections of his power. They were dreaming while awake, trapped in his vision. Clara felt her own fear rising, feeding him. The more terrified she became, the stronger the shimmer around him grew. Then, deep inside her mind, she heard the woman from the mirror house, a voice like the hum of electricity. I do not believe his picture. Draw your own. Clara clenched her fists and forced herself to remember the warmth of sunlight, laughter in the cafe, the smell of paint and rain and coffee. She pictured them so vividly that the color began to return to the world. The man faltered. His smile wavered. Stop, he hissed. You think you can drown me with light? Clara's pulse thundered. Not drown. Replace. The ground trembled. The crowd blinked, waking as if from a long dream. The man's form flickered. For an instant, she saw the reflection behind him again, a blur of mirrors and whispers. He stepped back, eyes narrowing. You've already connected to me. Every thought you have touches mine now. You can't undo that. And then, with a soft gust of wind, he vanished, like a shadow retreating from dawn. The silence that followed was unbearable. Clara stood in the square, breathing hard, surrounded by dazed strangers who didn't know what had just passed through them. The golden book opened again on its own. Only one sentence appeared. When two imaginations meet, the stronger vision survives. Clara closed it slowly. Her reflection in the cafe window looked older now, sharper, almost unfamiliar. He was right about one thing. Their thoughts were connected, and in that connection, she could feel it, his presence still out there, waiting, watching, dreaming. The next time he imagined, she would feel it, and the next time she did, he would, too. The war of thoughts had begun. Chapter 7, The City in the Mind. The morning after the encounter, the city felt wrong. Not broken, but tense, like a violin string pulled too tight. Clara walked through the streets, her eye scanning the familiar cafes, the corner stores, the people hurrying past. They all moved with purpose, but there was an unease beneath their steps, a subtle rigidity, like shadows clinging to them. Even the air seemed charged, humming faintly as though electricity ran just beneath the surface. She passed a man on the corner, muttering to himself. The words made no sense, yet the tone carried a fear so sharp it stung. A gust of wind lifted a newspaper and, to her shock, the headline twisted before her eyes. It read, "Fear walks among us." She blinked. It returned to its normal words. Clara clutched the golden book, now warm and pulsing like a living thing in her bag. She had learned one terrifying truth: the world listened to everyone. And when someone focused on fear, even unconsciously, the city felt it, bending streets, twisting thoughts, making the invisible very real. At the cafe, her friends were unusually quiet. Mara, normally cheerful, spilled a cup of coffee without looking, then whispered, "It's like something is in the air, pressing down." Clara nodded. She had felt it too, a shadow stretching invisibly across the city, a presence born of fear and amplified by thought. That evening, as she walked toward her apartment, she noticed subtle changes in the streets. Lights flickered in patterns, reflections in windows seemed too still, too deliberate. People moved mechanically, their gazes fixed ahead, unaware of her or the subtle chaos weaving through their thoughts. Then she felt it, a cold pulse, familiar and intrusive. The shadow.it didn't announce itself with words this time. Instead, Clara felt the city bend slightly under his focus. A car slowed unnecessarily, tires screeching, a bird froze mid-flight. Even the clouds seemed to hesitate as though they feared disturbing him. Clara's pulse raced. She wasn't just facing one person. She was facing a network, a force amplified by countless thoughts across the city. Her hand shook as she opened the golden book. The pages quivered, then revealed a line that hadn't been there before: "Your imagination is the lens. See what is, not what is feared." She closed her eyes and tried. A vision formed in her mind, the city bathed in sunlight, people laughing, dogs running, the wind gentle and alive. She imagined conversations filled with kindness, windows open, birds singing. She opened her eyes. The streets hadn't changed entirely, but small signs emerged. A stray cat leapt nimbly from a wall, a child ran laughing past her, a light in a shop window steadied after flickering. It was a beginning, but the shadow responded. She could feel it in the pulse of the streetlights, in the patterns of traffic, even in the hum of electricity beneath the city. It was pushing back, testing her limits. That night, Clara returned to the mirror house, desperate for guidance. The reflections shimmered, showing distorted versions of the city, streets bending like rivers, buildings leaning, people's faces twisting with fear. The woman in black appeared. "You see it now," she said. "The consequences of shared thought. The field responds to every mind, every fear, every hope. And he is strong. How do I stop it?" Clara asked. "He's already touching everyone." The woman's eyes were calm, almost unreadable. "You don't stop him. You shift the field. Every time you focus on light, the city bends toward you. But you must act quickly, fear spreads faster than hope." Clara swallowed hard. "How can I act fast enough?" The woman lifted her hand, showing a small, shining mirror. "Focus. Multiply yourself. Imagine not just one street, but the entire city filled with the vision you want. But beware, if even one thought slips into fear, the shadow uses it." Clara reached for the mirror. It was cold and heavy in her hands, but the surface reflected not her face, it reflected the city, alive and trembling under her thoughts. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the mirror house. One of the reflections shattered violently, and a scream, a faint, muffled, and yet unmistakable, rippled through the room. Clara staggered back. "It knows you are here," the woman said softly. "And it knows you can influence the city. It will try to push you out." Clara's heart raced. She could feel the city's pulse through the mirror, the fear and confusion spreading faster than light. A bus swerved on the street below, pedestrians stumbled, eyes wide. The shadow was already reaching beyond the imagination, affecting reality itself. She gritted her teeth and whispered, "I will not let it win." The mirror shimmered and hummed, responding to her belief. The city's reflection brightened, windows glowing, streets straightening, people moving freely. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, but in the corner of the reflection, a dark figure lingered, tall, shifting, always watching. Clara realized the truth: this was not just a battle of imagination. It was a war of perception. Every thought, every feeling, every intention could tilt reality. And the shadow was learning, adapting, faster than she could imagine. The woman in black stepped back. "Remember, Clara. You are not alone. The field listens to all who know. But the shadow learns from fear. Do not let it touch your heart." Clara nodded, clutching the mirror. She could see the city stretching out below, trembling under invisible pressure. Her hands tightened. She focused. Light. Hope. Possibility, and somewhere in the darkness, the shadow moved, waiting for her next thought. Chapter 8, The Network of Belief. Clara woke to the low hum of the city, faint but persistent, like a heartbeat she could feel through her chest. The shadow's influence had spread overnight. Streetlights flickered in uneasy rhythms, traffic hesitated, and a fog seemed to linger just above the pavements, not natural, but imagined. She knew she couldn't face it alone. The city wasn't just streets and buildings, it was thoughts, hundreds of thousands of them, all listening, all responding. And the shadow had learned to whisper into the minds of those who weren't awake yet. Clara opened the golden book. It was warm, alive with energy. Pages fluttered, stopping at a new line. When one mind awakens, others may follow. Gather them. Create a network. Her pulse quickened. A network. She had felt the others before, the old man at the cafe, the woman from the gallery, echoes of minds who knew the secret. She needed them now, and maybe others she didn't even know existed. That afternoon, she visited the cafe again. Mara greeted her with a cautious smile, eyes lingering longer than usual. Clara leaned close. "You remember the dream last night?" she asked softly. Mara froze. "Yes," she whispered. "I saw someone standing above the city, and the streets moved with him. It felt like fear itself was alive." Clara's heart pounded. "We can stop him," she said. "But only if we all focus together." Mara nodded, a faint spark of hope in her gaze. "I'll help." They began quietly, in the cafe and in small apartments, gathering anyone who had glimpsed the same truth, people who had seen the subtle hum of the world, who had felt the pulse beneath the streets. Each person brought a little light, a little belief, joining the invisible field with intention. Clara realized that it wasn't just about stopping the shadow. It was about teaching the city itself to remember that it could bend toward hope, not just fear. That night, she returned to the mirror house. The reflections shimmered like restless water. The woman in black appeared again. "You've begun," she said. "But the shadow learns faster than you imagine. Every mind connected to you must be aware, must feel their own power, or he will slip through." Clara held the mirror from before. Its surface rippled, showing the city alive with the people who had joined her. Streets glowed faintly, and faint waves of color pulsed through the air, invisible, but real. "How do we strengthen it?" Clara asked. "By believing," the woman said simply. "By feeling, imagining, living it. The network grows only as each mind awakens. But you must guard against fear. A fear spreads faster than thought." Clara nodded, watching the reflections of the city. She could see the shadows flickering in corners, but the light from the awake minds pushed them back, forming patterns of resistance. She realized that the network wasn't just protection. It was a map of possibility, invisible to anyone who hadn't awakened. And every thought she sent through it rippled outward, teaching the city to bend toward what they chose to see. The next morning, Clara walked through the streets, feeling the pulse beneath her feet. The shadow's presence was still there, subtle but sharp, twisting through the unconscious fears of the city. But the network was awake. Street by street, mind by mind, faint threads of light began to weave through the fog. She passed the man who had appeared at the cafe before, now sitting quietly on a bench, eyes closed. She stopped, instinctively lowering her voice. "You know what's happening?" she asked. He opened his eyes, calm, steady. "Yes," he said. "You are gathering the awake. But the shadow is patient. It waits for doubt to creep in." Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. She knew he was right. One slip, one flicker of fear, and the shadow could strike again. That night, she stood on her balcony, watching the city lights ripple faintly through the fog. The golden book lay open beside her, its words glowing faintly. "The world is listening. Every thought counts. Every feeling builds or breaks the field." Her hand gripped the mirror tightly. The network was growing, but the shadow was learning, adapting, spreading. A flicker of movement in the reflection caught her eye. It wasn't her reflection. Not entirely. A figure stood in the distance, watching, waiting. The city hummed beneath her, pulsing with 1,000 minds. Every heartbeat of belief was a thread. Every flicker of fear was a weakness, and somewhere, the shadow was planning. Clara knew one thing for certain: the battle for the city's mind had begun, and she could not afford to hesitate. The golden book shimmered once, softly, as if acknowledging her resolve. "You are not alone. But the shadow is patient." And outside, the streets whispered back, carrying the pulse of both fear and hope. Chapter 9. The clash of minds. The city trembled that morning. Clara could feel it before she even stepped outside, a low vibration under her feet, a pulse in the air, like the hum of an invisible drum. Something had shifted overnight. The shadow was stronger now, pushing beyond the hidden corners of the city and reaching into the minds of everyone who hadn't yet awakened. She gripped the golden book and the mirror tightly as she walked, her eyes scanning the streets. Streetlights flickered unnaturally, cars hesitated at intersections, and a strange stillness clung to the people she passed. Their faces were tense, their movements jerky, as though the city itself were holding its breath. She reached the square, the same one where she had first seen the shadow manifest in the crowd, and froze.it had gathered again. The man stood in the center of the square, pale and tall, his presence bending reality. Around him, the air shimmered and twisted. People moved like marionettes, their actions dictated by his fear, their eyes wide and empty. Clara's pulse quickened. She lifted the mirror high. Its surface shimmered, projecting the city as she imagined it, streets straight, lights glowing, people moving freely. She could feel the energy of the network pulsing through her hands, the warmth of the mind she had gathered. The shadow noticed. Its form rippled, stretching like smoke, feeding off every doubt, every hesitation, every flicker of fear in Clara's mind. "You can't stop me," it hissed, not with sound, but with vibration in the air and a cold pressure against her chest. "I am the city's hidden truth. Every fear, every panic, it belongs to me." Clara swallowed hard. "No," she whispered, "the city belongs to hope too. And we are awake now." She focused on the network, sending waves of belief and intention outward. Each thought strengthened the streets, the people, the very air. The shadow recoiled slightly, but it surged forward again, faster, sharper, stronger. The first collision struck like thunder. A building's windows trembled, a street lamp shattered. Cars screeched to a halt, horns blaring. Pedestrians stumbled as reality itself seemed to wobble under the clash of their wheels. Clara's hand shook as she held the mirror higher. The golden book flared, illuminating the square with a warm, pulsing light. She felt the pulse of the awake minds, Mara, the cafe owner, even strangers she had helped awaken, all feeding into her energy. Together, they could hold the city steady, but the shadow was relentless. Its form twisted again, darker, sharper. It leapt from mind to mind, twisting people's thoughts into fear. A gust of wind howled through the square, carrying whispers of doubt into every ear. Clara's own fear surged, threatening to break her concentration. She felt the mirror vibrate violently in her hands, and for a moment, she thought she might collapse. Then she remembered the words from the mirror house: "The field listens to all who know. Fear spreads faster than light. Believe louder than it can scream." She closed her eyes, imagining the city not as it was, but as it could be, streets glowing, people laughing, dogs running, children playing. She imagined warmth in the air, the soft hum of life undisturbed, the pulse of hope stronger than the shadow's reach. The square trembled again, but this time the tremor went outward. The light from the mirror spread, filling the streets, radiating through windows, slipping into every corner of the city. People blinked, their faces clearing. The fog lifted. The tremor of fear slowed, then faltered as the shadow screamed, again, not in sound but through vibration, a deep, resonant pressure in the air. It was struggling, its form twisting, stretching, trying to pull the awake minds into doubt. Clara opened her eyes. The mirror reflected not only the square but the entire city, alive, breathing, pulsing with belief. The shadow recoiled, flickering, caught between the light of so many minds focused on hope. "You can't win," Clara said aloud, her voice stronger than ever. "Not while we believe." For the first time, she saw it weaken. Its edges frayed, and the pressure it carried eased slightly. The network of awake minds pulsed with her confidence, and slowly, the shadow's presence retreated from the square, slinking like smoke back into hidden corners. But it was not gone. Clara knew that now, somewhere, far beyond her sight, the shadow was still moving through the city, testing, learning, waiting for the moment when doubt would creep in again. She lowered the mirror, her hands trembling but her heart resolute. The city was breathing more freely, at least for now. But the battle had only begun. The golden book glowed softly, its warmth seeping into her hands. A single line shimmered across the page: "The war is of thought, and the field remembers every stroke. One mistake, one doubt, and the shadow will return." Clara looked out over the square. People were walking normally now, unaware of how close they had come to being trapped in the shadow's vision. The air was lighter, yet tense, like a wound that had healed but still throbbed as she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible, "We're ready. I'm ready. And I won't stop." The city held its breath. And somewhere, in the hidden reaches of fear, the shadow waited, patient, learning, planning its next move. Chapter 10, The Hidden Threads. Clara woke before dawn, the city still shrouded in fog, its streets quiet but uneasy. The victory in the square had been temporary. She could feel the shadow lingering, coiling like smoke through the minds of those still unaware. She carried the golden book under her arm, the mirror in her bag, both pulsing faintly, alive with energy. The mirror house had taught her that imagination was a weapon, but a fragile one. Every thought, every emotion could either strengthen or weaken the field. And now she had to think faster, move smarter. Her first step was to gather the network. Small meetings in hidden cafes, whispered conversations in empty libraries, messages passed through code words in emails no one else would understand. People who had glimpsed the secret, who had felt the city's pulse, came together, their minds like individual sparks, ready to ignite. But even as they assembled, Clara sensed the shadow probing, testing, finding weak threads. During one session in an old warehouse converted into a meeting place, she watched the group work together, visualizing streets glowing, people smiling, the city calm and bright. But something was off. One man, usually calm and focused, kept blinking, his mind flickering, subtly feeding fear into the visualization. Clara noticed immediately. She held the mirror up, and in its surface, she saw the faint shadow coiling around him, whispering into his mind. "You're affected," she said quietly, moving closer. He shook his head. I'm fine," he stammered. Clara's eyes narrowed. "No. The network listens to everyone. And right now, you're feeding him." The man's face paled. He had been unaware of it. The shadow worked subtly, influencing thoughts without consent. But the danger was real. One infected mind could undo hours of careful work. The golden book pulsed in her hands, as if echoing her thoughts. "Awareness is your shield. Concentration is your sword." She took a deep breath. "Focus," she said, soft but firm. "Remember what you want, not what he imagines." Slowly, the man's eyes cleared. The shadow withdrew, sensing resistance. Clara felt relief ripple through the network, faint but enough to stabilize the field. But the lesson was clear: the shadow was learning, adapting, finding weak threads in the network. She couldn't allow anyone to remain unaware for long. That night, she walked the streets herself, testing the city. She imagined calm, people walking confidently, children laughing, the wind soft and alive. The fog in the alley shimmered faintly, pulling away from the streets, responding to her intent. But she also felt pockets of tension, corners where the shadow's influence lingered. In a small apartment building, she saw a young woman staring blankly at a wall, thoughts twisted into panic without realizing it. A bus hesitated unnaturally at a red light, the driver's mind flickering with invisible dread. Clara realized something terrifying: the shadow could hide in small, subtle fears, multiplying invisibly. One mind, unguarded, could infect the rest of the city. She returned to her apartment, exhausted but determined. The golden book lay open, its words glowing faintly. "The stronger the network, the harder the shadow will try. But the awake can protect what is real." Her reflection in the window shimmered. The mirror in her bag vibrated. She knew the shadow had noticed her vigilance. It was patient, but clever. Tomorrow, she would begin training the network more rigorously, teaching them to shield themselves, to sense the shadow before it could whisper. But tonight, she allowed herself a moment of quiet, imagining the city safe, streets glowing with the energy of belief, minds awake and aware. And somewhere in the unseen corners of the city, the shadow lurked, moving along the hidden threads it had discovered, waiting for the next opportunity to strike. Clara pressed the golden book to her chest, feeling its warmth, whispering to herself, "We will not fail. Not while I hold the vision." The city breathed, faint and restless, ready to respond to the clash of thought that would come. And the shadow, patient as ever, watched and waited. Chapter 11. The city responds. The morning was heavy with tension. Clara stepped onto the streets, the golden book tucked under her arm, the mirror in her bag vibrating faintly with the pulse of the city. The network had grown, but so had the shadow's influence. It was no longer subtle. Streetlights flickered violently, swinging between bright illumination and darkness, as if the city itself were shivering. Cars hesitated mid-intersection, horns blaring in sudden chaos. The air felt thick, almost solid, and Clara could sense the invisible pressure of fear pressing down. She closed her eyes and imagined the city stable, people moving freely, the wind gentle and alive. For a heartbeat, it responded, traffic straightened, the fog thinned, and a child's laugh echoed from a nearby alley. But the shadow struck again, twisting that heartbeat, sending cars into sudden panic, windows slamming shut, and whispers of fear slinking into the minds of strangers. Clara realized the terrifying truth: the shadow had learned to manipulate not just thoughts, but the physical world through thought. It was no longer a distant menace, it could bend reality itself wherever fear resonated. She rushed to the square, where the first major confrontation had taken place. Normally a bustling hub, it was now eerily silent, the fog curling like fingers between abandoned benches. Her pulse quickened as she felt the shadow stretching across the city, probing, testing, searching for the tiniest crack in concentration. From the mirror house, the woman in black appeared, or perhaps Clara simply sensed her presence. "It's escalating," she said, her voice calm but grave. "The shadow is reaching deeper now. Every mind connected to you, every corner of belief, is a battleground." Clara clenched the mirror in her hands. "It's not enough to hold the network together," she said. "We have to fight back, to act, not just imagine." The woman nodded. Yes. But be careful. Action without focus feeds the shadow. Clara felt the weight of her responsibility pressing down. She turned her attention outward, spreading her awareness across the city. She imagined streets glowing, buildings standing strong, windows reflecting sunlight. She envisioned people moving with purpose, children laughing freely, wind filling every alley and rooftop. The mirror pulsed in her hands, amplifying her intention. Slowly, the chaos eased, cars resumed normal movement, light stabilized, the fog lifted slightly. The people around her blinked as if waking from a half-formed dream, but the shadow was clever. It didn't attack directly. Instead, it crept into subtler fears, a whispered doubt in a child's mind, a fleeting panic in a driver, the quiet unease in someone crossing the street alone. The city seemed to flicker between order and chaos, as if reality itself were held together by Clara's focus. She realized she couldn't rely on the network alone. The shadow had infiltrated too deeply. Every awakened mind had to act consciously, projecting calm and belief, or the city would unravel around them. Clara raced through the streets, stopping in apartments, cafes, and small offices, whispering instructions, guiding others to focus, to imagine stability and hope. Slowly, the city began to respond. The trembling streets steadied, lights glowed consistently, the hum of life returned to a more natural rhythm. Yet everywhere she went, she could feel the shadow, lurking at the edges of perception, testing, probing, waiting for the moment a mind faltered. By nightfall, Clara returned to her apartment, exhausted but vigilant. The golden book lay open, glowing faintly. Its new message appeared: the stronger the field, the stronger the shadow. It will escalate. And it will adapt. Her reflection in the window shimmered, distorted slightly as if reality itself were breathing. The city pulsed below her, alive with minds awake and minds unaware, a living map of belief and fear. Clara realized something chilling: the battle was no longer invisible. The shadow could twist streets, buildings, and objects, and if even one mind in the network faltered, the consequences would spill into the physical world. She pressed the mirror against her chest. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the city in her hands. We have to be ready, she whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. And somewhere in the shifting fog of the city, the shadow watched, patient and cunning, learning how to exploit the city itself, waiting for the moment when a single thought of doubt could ignite chaos. Clara's heartbeat echoed with the truth she could no longer ignore. This war of thought had become a war of reality, and the city itself was the battlefield. Chapter 12, The Heart of Belief. The city held its breath. Clara stood on the highest rooftop she could reach, the golden book open in her hands, the mirror beside her glowing faintly. Below, the streets pulsed with life, some steady, some trembling, a visible reflection of the thoughts and fears coursing through its inhabitants. The shadow had grown bold, twisting reality in subtle ways, a car hovering on the edge of control, a flickering street lamp casting uneven light, the wind curling unnaturally around corners. It was waiting for her. Clara closed her eyes, drawing in a deep, steadying breath. She felt the network of awake minds she had cultivated, every heartbeat, every flicker of awareness. Each mind connected, each thought aligned with intention, amplified and projected outward. She could feel the city itself listening, responding, bending toward her focus. A cold pulse ran through the air. The shadow appeared at the edge of her perception, tall, shapeless, coiling like smoke, eyes colorless and endless. It radiated fear, tugging at her own thoughts, trying to disrupt her concentration. You cannot stop me, it whispered, though its voice carried not a sound but as pressure against her chest. The city is mine. Every doubt, every panic, it answers me. Clara's fingers clenched around the mirror. No, she said, her voice trembling but firm. The city belongs to hope, to belief. You only exist because I allow it. The shadow surged, coiling faster, stretching across the rooftops, seeking cracks in her focus. The wind howled, streetlights flickered violently, and in the streets below, people stumbled as if caught in an invisible tide. Clara lifted the mirror high. Its surface shimmered, reflecting the city, not as it was, but as she imagined it, streets glowing, buildings straight and solid, people moving freely, laughter spilling through alleys, the wind soft and alive. The golden book pulsed in her other hand, each page a heartbeat of intention, amplifying her will. She felt the network pulse in return, awake minds feeding energy into the field, aligning their thoughts with hers. One by one, the threads of belief grew stronger, brighter, pushing back the shadow's reach. You are clever, Clara whispered. But you are only a reflection of fear. I am not afraid. The shadow roared, again, not in sound but in force, bending the air, twisting light, sending tremors through the streets. But Clara held steady. She imagined light filling every building, every mind, every corner of the city. She imagined hope flowing through the streets like a river, and slowly, impossibly, the shadow began to falter. Its edges frayed, its coils shrinking, as if trying to retreat from the brightness. The pressure against her chest eased. The wind calmed. Streetlights stabilized. The city began to breathe again. Clara opened her eyes fully. The mirror reflected the city, alive, glowing, whole. She felt the pulse of belief flowing through every street, every mind, every heart. The shadow still lingered at the edges, faint and thin, but it was diminished, unable to reach the network of awake minds. She whispered to the city, and her words traveled through thought and intention. We are awake. We are light. We are the creators of what is real. And the city responded. Buildings shimmered with warmth, windows reflecting sunlight, streets smooth and straight. People walked with purpose, smiles returning, laughter spilling into the air. The wind carried their hope, their belief, through every alley, every rooftop, every corner. The golden book glowed, the mirror pulsing in harmony with the city. Clara realized something profound. The power was never hers alone. It belonged to everyone who dared to imagine, who dared to believe, who dared to see the world not as it was, but as it could be. The shadow, diminished but patient, lingered at the farthest edges of perception. But Clara knew it had no hold over the awake minds, no ability to bend reality where belief was strong. She smiled, feeling the warmth of triumph mixed with exhaustion. The city shimmered below her, alive, awake, and listening. She understood finally what the Golden Book had always been teaching: belief is not passive. It is active. It is alive. It shapes, it creates, it sustains. The world becomes what those who dare to imagine it can hold in their minds. Clara lowered the mirror, watching the city pulse with life. Somewhere, in the distance, a small light flickered faintly, perhaps the shadow's lingering presence, testing, waiting, learning. But the network of awake minds, the collective heartbeat of belief, was stronger than it could ever be. She pressed her hand to the Golden Book and whispered softly, her voice carrying across the rooftops, the streets, the hearts of those awake. We are creators. We are light. We are awake. And in the quiet that followed, the city breathed, alive and whole, listening, ready to reflect the power of belief. The shadow had been challenged, diminished, and though it waited, it would never again hold dominion where the awake were united. Clara looked out over the city, a calm smile on her face, knowing that the heart of belief was alive, and that the power of imagination, when shared, was unstoppable. The Golden Book closed gently, as if satisfied. The mirror rested quietly, reflecting the glow of the city, and Clara knew, in her very bones, that the world could indeed become what they dared to believe. And somewhere deep in the city's pulse, the echo of hope whispered back, louder than any fear ever could.
Thank you for listening to this story here on Momentum Mind. Now I want to hear from you. What book or story of growth should we explore next? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if this journey inspired you, remember to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next story. Your momentum begins right here.